I'll do this. Okay. My question is, multiple times you see opportunities, but with that opportunity comes a risk. A risk could be like your career could go on a stake because you are entering a business, or you in a business you want to expand something. You take loan. You put in the lifetime investment into this. Now, opportunity versus risk. How do you really balance this thing? And what is something which will really push you to take that risk? Because the failure is sometimes really not worth taking it. So how do you really overcome this scenarios?
I think a very good question. I can tell you what I do when I have situations like this. I tend to spend a lot of time trying to evaluate the options and what are the next few moves in some sense that might happen. So I use a strategy which I call, again, I'm sure there are other names for it, but I find that if you enumerate all possible things that you could do and their consequences, then you will find that some of them are obviously not realistic and can be ignored. And then you're left with a small number of choices that you have to make. And at the end of it, what choice you make is going to decide the outcome of various things. So when we are making a decision, we are always making a decision today in the context of what we know, and we try to make the best possible decision that we need to make. And of course, every opportunity has challenges and all of those things, but your way forward depends on the fork or the path or the decision you make. So instead of sweating about the opportunity and the challenge and trying to get confused about it, you need to bring it down to, so what am I supposed to do about it? So yes, there is the oil price is going to go to 170, blah blah, some all kinds of things are going to happen. So what do I do about it? I can do nothing about it, then forget it. If there is something I can do about it, then what are the possible things I can do? And if I have them enumerated, then I can choose which ones are the most sensible things to do. One other thing that I found very useful is that when you enumerate possibilities, sometimes there are possibilities that you may not have thought of at this moment. But as the business evolves, or the world moves in a certain way, you might find that those things which you had eliminated might come back in prominence. But because you have thought of them already, you tend to be far more effective in terms of how to go about it. So let me give you a few more sort of practical tips of how to go about it. So I like mind maps a lot. Everyone has their own ways of doing things. I use mind maps a lot. I use a product called Xmind, XMIND, for making my mind maps. I find them to be very useful. So normally when I am forced to make a decision like you suggested, I tend to enumerate different options. One of the challenges that we have is that when we start looking at these options, we get very confused and get mixed up with these options. So one way to do it is I found useful in certain cases is to write these out on different sheets of paper. I could be doing this, I could be doing this, I could be doing that. So like for example, in my career situation, I might say, oh, should I do engineering or should I do physics or should I do medical or should I do this or that? And all these things start to become confusing. Then people get, oh, what will happen to jobs? What will be how much money will I make? So people get all kinds of mixed up, right? So the question is you have to ask yourselves what makes sense. So it's a choice you have to make. So how do I make the best choice possible? And once you made the choice, you have to move along. So what I find is if you enumerate the possible options that you have, you might find that the medical doesn't make sense because you don't have enough marks. So forget it. Don't even think about it. Right? But when you enumerate all these options, you can decide which ones make sense. And then you are in a much better situation to do it. So I'm not the guy who is very impulsive. I like to take my time. I think about things. I write them down. And again, that's another piece of advice that I would give is if you write things down, it becomes a lot clearer. Another way to do the same thing is to share it with someone else. So find somebody who will listen to your confusion in some sense, and they'll be able to also give you more than they giving you anything else. The fact that you explain to someone who doesn't understand what the confusion in your mind is often is very useful for you to clear out your mind and get clarity in the path that you are trying to pursue. So again, just to summarize, one is I follow the options that I said, enumerate and eliminate. So you enumerate all possible options and eliminate those that don't make sense.
Mhm.
Once you have done this for yourselves, make sure that each of your options are independently defined. So if I decide to do this, this is what's going to happen. Don't mix the options and their consequences all over the place, because that's one mistake we make. Then the third thing I would suggest is go talk to someone who you trust, who you share with them what are the possibilities. I'm thinking about this, I can think of that, whatever. The fact, even if they don't say anything, okay, the fact that you explain it to them will get your head clear and you will be in a much better situation to make the choice. And once you've made the choice, keep moving. And at a point of time when you find that the situation has changed or your assumptions were wrong, the fact that you have enumerated certain options, you might get certain options that you had eliminated might start to become very prominent, but your mind will help you come back to those options very effectively. So that's my advice to you. And the last thing, as I said, which I shared already, is that I find this tool very useful. And that is XMind. And I use mind maps or choice maps or some sort, but I use mind maps a lot for doing these kinds of things.
Perfect.
So wonderful. I'll just add on to what Anandji shared, that the first option is enumerate and eliminate. That means what we are doing or what he is doing is basically, people say I'm confused. Clarity comes only when we are confused. Without confusion, there is no clarity. So if there is a confusion, most people are impulsive and take decisions, which I said, don't be in a hurry, just take your time. So first thing what he shared was enumerate and then eliminate and then make it very, very clear. If I do this, this can happen. If I do this, this can happen, and in your own way. Second thing, what Anandji shared is write it down, which I have been telling since the last 30 years, 35 years. Write it down, write it down, write it down. Everything is to be documented. Means, see, as why to write it down is to be clear of how unclear we are. Otherwise, there are 60 to 80,000 thoughts going on in a day. And when we write it down, we become clear on how unclear we are. That clarity comes. Third thing, what Anandi shared was share it with someone. So sharing again clears your mind. Whether you answers or no, at least you are clearing your mind. And one more option I'll give you is what I do is, if you don't have anyone to share, speak to yourself loudly. In front of the mirror, in front of the, we call it T by T, T by L. T by T means talk your thoughts.
Okay.
T by L, to yourself loudly. T by T, talk your thoughts to yourself loudly. That means T by L. And when you talk your thoughts loudly, always question yourself, like what Anandji started off with. Always question yourself, why? I want to start this business. Why? I want to buy this house. Why? I want to buy this car. Why? I want to take a loan. Why? That why gives you an introspection and you go very deep into yourself, and lot of clarity comes. Lot of things we drop only when you question why. I don't remember. I don't have any purpose. So a lot of this elimination will happen when you T by T, T by L. And of course, as I said, XMind. So XMind means I have used mind maps in galore. But I used to use Tony Buzan, the mind maps, and XMind, or I have also used another two more softwares. So, and sometimes, I just have to draw something like this, I just draw something like this, and then I make these things, and then just write down my options here. Especially when you are brainstorming, this helps fantastic. Just go on scribbling and scribbling. Like this, draw the center and keep on drawing these things on the spot.